Hey everyone. I just finished reading this mind-blowing novel, and I can't wait to share it with you. Imagine this: Mary, who is known for her sweet and kind nature, is unexpectedly confronted by the intense and almost barbaric charm of Ryker. But there's a catch: Ryker is haunted by his past, and HES constantly battling his own demons. He wants Mary, but HES afraid of what she might think of him. It's like watching a delicate flower being courted by a storm. How will this stormy relationship unfold? Stick around to find out. 18. The basket contained a colorful hash, expertly mixed with roasted red peppers, mushrooms, and finely chopped asparagus. Accompanying this was her homemade bread, lightly toasted and buttered to perfection, along with a plate of sunny side-up eggs, their golden yolks gleaming invitingly. As Mary adjusted the cloth covering her culinary creation, she was startled to find Ryker already waiting outside her cabin. His presence was unexpected, as she had anticipated Abraham and Gray returning to continue her tour. This had been part of her motivation for rising early and preparing such an elaborate breakfast, intending to make a quick visit to Louise's farm beforehand. Ryker cut an imposing figure in the clearing before her home. His attire exuded a rugged charm that perfectly complemented the mountainous setting. He wore dark denim work pants, their well-worn appearance speaking of many days spent in honest labor. His feet were encased in moccasin-styled work boots, the pants hem carelessly tucked into them. A red and black slim-fit flannel shirt, partially buttoned and tucked in on one side, completed his lumberjack ensemble. His medium-length taper-fade haircut and rolled-up sleeves only added to this image of casual confidence. Mary found herself frozen in place, her gaze fixed on Ryker's striking appearance. It wasn't until he cleared his throat that she realized he had been staring, her self-consciousness rising to the surface. Ryker's eyes performed a deliberate sweep of Mary's form, the intensity of his gaze causing every hair on her body to stand on end. The unspoken message was clear: she had appraised him, and now he was returning the favor. Grateful for her choice of attire, Mary stood her ground. She wore a light gray button-up tucked into dark denim skinny jeans, paired with small white casual shoes that seemed somewhat out of place in the rugged terrain. Her mousy brown hair was pulled back into a high ponytail, accentuating her features. "Good morning," Mary ventured, breaking the silence. "Good morning," Ryker replied, his gaze lingering on her lips, a clear reminder of their passionate encounter the previous night. The memory of their kiss and his admission of desire hung in the air between them, adding a palpable tension to the crisp mountain morning. "Where are Gary and Abraham?" Mary asked, hopefully deterring her thoughts from getting any darker. "I assigned them some projects to work on. They'll be showing you around today," Ryker told her. Together the two walked towards Louise's farm, a high-desire path created by years of human traffic. The thick masses of branches above covered most of the skies, but little sun rays slipped through the cracks and cast beautiful shadows in the atmosphere. "I wanted to give Louise something nice. He was very sweet to me," she said. Ryker gathered as much from the smell of food coming from her basket. He was internally glad that Louise was kind to her. Louise and Doris were an old mating couple, but known as the sweetest in the pack. They were kind to everybody. The air between them had an answered question that hung in the air. Neither of them wanted to say anything to the other, waiting to see who would speak up first. Mary held the handle of her woven basket tighter, her eyes moving to stare ahead before turning to look at him. Unfortunately, the moment she looked at him was the moment he looked at her. She chuckled, uncertainly breathing a breath of air. Why was she out of words all of a sudden? So she began. "About last night." "Well, which well?" "Hello there," Louise greeted from a distance. He was about 10 yards away from them, chopping down some firewood. Although the male had hit his prime age for a werewolf, he looked as fit as ever, which made sense by how hard he worked on his farm. Louise chortled and moved to grab a shirt. "I apologize, Alpha. I didn't expect any visitors today," he said while struggling to pull on his gray t-shirt. Finally, The male pulled the hem down his torso. Not a problem, Louise, Ryker replied. So, what can I help you two with? He smiled. Mary lifted her basket up into the air. I made some breakfast for you and Dora, so. Louise asked curiously before leaning further towards the basket. His stomach grumbled shamelessly in front of everyone. Both males laughed at the sound and Mary cowled to stop a giggle from slipping between her lips. Oh man, I can't tell you how grateful I am. I'm still waiting on my darling Doris to make something for lunch. But she would love this, Louise announced. There were some leaves rustling behind Louise. All their heads turned in the noise's direction. A male who looked like a younger version of Louise stepped out. Obviously, Mary knew that it must be Louise's son or relation to Louise. The male was not slender like Louise. Instead, he had thick bulging muscles and broad shoulders. His neck must be the size of one of her thighs. Someone as big as him could look intimidating. But he wasn't. Pa Ma sent me to check in on you. Said you might need some help. Your ma is fretting for nothing. Louise grumbled. That is Alexei. He is Louise's son. Ryker introduced Mary to him. Mary looked at the Louise in the eyes. He was a giant. Ryker was tall already for Mary. So to stand before Alexei was like staring at a mountain. Her eyes swept over his scarred face. A horrid scar covered almost half of his right face. It looked like he got burned. So badly that healing completely wasn't an option. Mary realized Alexei had not welcomed her staring because Alexei's eyes hardened slightly and his jaw ticked further, enhancing the paleness of the scar. Nice to meet you. Alexei, my name is Mary. She greeted him and put her hand out for him to shake. Alexei's eyes flitted to Ryker, who nodded his head once before his hand touched Mary's. She thought it was odd. Why on earth did he need to ask Ryker for permission? Ryker wasn't quoting her. Sure, they enjoyed a few wonderful kisses here and there, but that was it. He told her he desired her, but desiring and courting were two different things. Alexei removed his hand quickly before turning back to his father. We should return home. Ma wouldn't like it if she has to wait any longer, Alexei advised. Mary was a little disappointed at how quickly the conversations were ending. She had wanted to visit their farm and meet Doris. Yet, she knew she shouldn't intrude. She was still an outsider. But she couldn't help but wonder while she stared at the retreating father and son. Ryker and Abraham had taken in many rogues, lost wolves, and families. Staring at Alexei, she couldn't help but think about the hardship that he had gone through. What are you thinking about? Ryker asked. They were walking in the woods alone again. She wasn't sure where he was taking her. The look on her face was distant. Her eyes were clouded and far. Ryker could tell she was deep in thought. When he asked his question, she blinked and looked his way. Alexei, how did he come by the scar on his face? She asked. Ryker wanted to smile because in a way he knew she was thinking about Alexei. Placing his hands at the center of his back, he sighed and looked ahead. Alexei met some terrible rogues. They cornered him in an alleyway, burned him with melted silver. Mary found it hard to believe. With how Alexei looked, he could probably take down 10 wolves. Ryker must have seen where Mary's thought was traveling to because he answered her next question. He's a big guy, but a big guy with a big heart. They have bullied him all his life. Part of the reason his parents parted from pack life. They wanted him to find peace, away from the bullies. They wanted him to find himself. Mary felt Alexei's pain. How can people be so cruel? She thought to herself. Even when she asked herself that question, she already knew the answer. We build society that way, a wallflower left to hang on the wall. Jumping at the chance of love or a happily ever after. Taking life into her own hands wasn't what she had wanted. Did it make her braver to fight for what she wanted? It didn't matter now. She kissed the wrong guy. Anyway, at that thought, she released a little breathy laugh. Ryker halted in his walk to stare at her. What was amusing? Mary turned to look at him, and one corner of her lips lifted, eyeing the male before her. She couldn't help but laugh at her own foolishness. Mary had made so many mistakes. But did she regret her actions? Her eyes skimmed his face leisurely, enjoying how the sun now shadowed his face. The answer was no. She didn't regret a single thing. To hell with the wallflower title. Mary would taste all the happiness that life would give her. If Ryker was offering passion, how could she deny it? At least if she was to die tomorrow, she at least would have gotten a taste of the wildfires between a male and female. Right. Ryker still eyed her carefully, so many emotions flying across her face that he couldn't pin exactly what she was thinking. Where to next? She asked suddenly. Ryker was still puzzled over her reaction, a million questions running through his mind. Never in his life has he ever wanted to know what someone was thinking about until now. Many people were afraid of Alexei. The poor guy doesn't have many friends. Even his pack members found it hard to be around Alexei. However, Mary looked the male straight in the eyes and even offered her hand for him to shake, as if there were no scars on his face. She didn't even flinch in front of him. Alexei was not a handsome male. Ryker could even see how terrified some females would be to wake up to him in the middle of the night. For someone like Alexei, he has closed himself off to everyone, which was why Ryker has always left the male alone. Would you like to see our pack's greenhouse? He replied. There is a main one. Mary asked and chased after Ryker, who has already started walking again. Yes. We have a main greenhouse for providing crops throughout the seasons. Whatever we grow inside, we give away to those who are in need. He answered her question. That is pretty genius. She replied. We keep our seeds and plant whenever possible. He added. Ryker continued to answer Mary's questions while walking down another desired path towards the main greenhouse. He figured he'll take her there since she loved cooking so much. She may like to see how they are growing their vegetables. When they arrived at the greenhouse, it surprised Mary to see how big it was. Ryker moved to open one door of the double glass green doors, allowing her to enter first. She was immediately hit with the change in humidity and air. Cemented pathways that led them through the many rows of vegetables, large piping above to spray water onto the plant. The light shining from the skies. Mary knew right away why they chose this spot. It was in direct sunlight. Up here, we can have some trouble growing some crops, so having the greenhouse can help with growing, Ryker said. Mary crouched down and touched the soil. It was soft, wet and dark, filled with nutrients judging by how vibrant even the soil looked. Ryker crouched down next to her. He grabbed a bit of the soil into his palm. Amazing, she whispered, turning to look at him with bright eyes. Mary hasn't even seen everything yet, but she was in love with how Ryker has built his pack. The town was small yet efficient enough to not make his pack members miss the city life. He created everything he can here with what he had. The male before him was a brilliant male. You are brilliant, she admitted with a smile. Hearing those words from her lips was enough to kick his heart hard enough that it skipped a beat. The look of appreciation and admiration appearing in her eyes. It pulled at him. Simple ideas like this amaze her. Ryker wasn't sure if he wanted to run away or pull her into his arms. Mary was too sweet for him to taint, but he couldn't resist the temptation. Gods and goddesses. How the hell did he get himself in this situation? 19. Ryker followed closely behind Mary as she examined the strawberries that were growing in long, white rain gutters. The strawberries were bare root strawberries that he purchased. Ryker then filled the gutters with a moist, soilless mix, trimmed the roots before planting the roots into the soft soil. I have just arrived, but I believe this may be my most favorite place of all. This place has a calming ambience. It shuts out the outside world. There is no noise or voices, she whispered softly while walking down the gray pathway. It was one of Ryker's favorite places, too. He came here often to plant most of the vegetables and plants. He tended to them daily. Alexei stops by when Ryker doesn't check on the greenhouse, too. Ryker noticed that she looked but didn't touch. Her arm stayed by her side the whole time, almost as if she was afraid of ruining what was in front of her. Her brown eyes were bright with interest. A soft smile played on her lips. A million reasons were running silently in his head. Ryker knew what he had gotten himself into. It started with his unwillingness to let her go. He knew that without a doubt. He had to ask her to come to his peg. He promised her opportunities as an excuse. Lord above, she was inching closer to his heart, and he was apprehensive about that fact. He learned his lesson with Lottie. It tore him apart when she left him. Yet he hopes. Ryker reached for a ripe strawberry. He plucked it from the vine. Mary's attention flew to his hand before looking at him. Would you like to taste? He said. Mary didn't argue. Grabbing for the strawberry before bringing it to her lips and then taking a bite with her lips wrapped around the fruit. His entire body reacted to her eating that strawberry. Without thinking, he stepped closer and touched her chin. Leaning forward, he took her lips between his. Mary parted her lips willingly with no fight. His entire body was on fire. Ryker broke the kiss a second later. Pulling away, he looked to see her reaction. Deny. Push me away. Stop me, Ryker thought. When she offered no protest or outrage for the stolen kiss, his hand boldly slipped to cradle her cheek. Leaning forward, he took her lips back into his again. His good conscience was deafening. It shouted for him to stop. But the feel of her soft lips and her sweet presence was intense. There were many reasons he should act like a gentleman and walk away. But Ryker was never good to start with. Like a paralyzing fog, it numbed all logic inside of him. Ryker couldn't stop kissing her even if he wanted to. It didn't help that she was kissing him back too. Push me away. Mary. Ryker scolded her in his mind. His other hand moved to grip one of her arms, digging his fingers into her muscles, pushing her to push him away. She moaned instead, and he hardened in response. Curse you, Mary. Ryker growled deeply within his chest, his fingers further digging into her arms out of pure frustration at her response. It puzzled him greatly. Why did she not push him away? He was ruining her innocence. Ryker was taking like some kind of barbarian when he knew he should treat Mary like a female of value. Growling, he yanked her an arm length away, his hands firmly set on her arms. Mary should know better. Her virtue should be everything. In a society like this, giving it away would be a great disappointment, especially if she wanted a mate. Although females could lose their virtue as quickly as males, it was knowingly frowned upon. For someone like Mary, she deserved better. She deserved more than someone like him. He would take everything she gives in a second. He'll devour her, savor every single part of her body, and make her scream with need. Ryker was stupid and oblivious. He likes Mary more than he wants to admit. He likes how sweet she was in the way she displays her emotions and thoughts. Mary was not like the girls he slept with, but she also reminded him so much of Lottie. This was what stops him. Lottie fooled him notably with her innocent display. He thought she was his soulmate, although he never had much to begin with. Ryker thought she loved him for who he was. A foolish thought to begin with. Yet a small part of him wanted more. Ryker wanted to kiss Mary and take what she was given. She went to the mating ball. She had every intention to kiss his brother, but kissed him instead. Although the thought turned him sour with jealousy, the truth was she was looking for a mate. It was the only reason that he could find proper for her. Plus, he had also looked into her background thoroughly. Everything she said was true so far. Ryker broke away the kiss. Mary back was leaning against a post. His eyes sought her brown ones. They were glinting with lust. The lips he kissed, swollen and thoroughly kissed. Why didn't you push me away? He questioned. Mary batted her lashes in confusion, her bottom lips puckering slightly. Did you want me to? She replied. Ryker didn't understand her at all. Didn't she worry about her virtue? He couldn't care less about virtue, but what about her mate? He may think differently. To Ryker, virtue was as important as other traits. He wanted a female who was faithful, loyal, and strong. Mary was everything he wanted in a mate. Maybe that was why he fought so hard with his feelings. As quick as that thought came, he knew he had committed a crime. Ryker shouldn't have taken advantage of her like this. Mary was sweet and kind, and he had roguishly swept and stolen many kisses. He had even felt her body. As barbaric as he was, he still had some sense of honor inside of him. Mary. He breathed while thrusting his fingers through his hair in frustration. Mary waited for him to continue, but it seemed it was hard for him to form a sentence with all the reasons and thoughts that were running through his head. "Why did you go to the mating ball?" he asked. She sure wasn't expecting that question because it took her a minute to respond. Well, my reasons are like everybody else's," she responded. "You don't want a mate." He pushed further. The question was direct, and Ryker could see that Mary's pride was slowly making an appearance. He was aware of her age. In their society, this age was past the norm for mating. It was a crime. It only meant that the female was a preferred mating partner, which made her undesirable. Ryker didn't realize how sensitive the topic was, though. Although Mary wanted to find herself a mate, she also was prideful. "Don't you want a mate?" She reiterated his question to him, but she didn't wait for him to respond. She pulled away from him and walked to the walls of strawberries. "You and I know the importance of a mate," she continued, not looking at him. He followed her but stood behind her. He agreed. Then us appearing at the mating ball was not a coincidence. "Ryker, we're both old enough to understand the purpose behind it." She spun around to look at him. "I want a mate, but that doesn't mean I'm desperate for one. Kissing you, it was a chance to grab at something I wanted, but that is among many other things that I want." Ryker understood what she means, but the only words that resonated in his head were that she was seeking a mate. Mary seeking a mate, and he was tarnishing her reputation. He felt disgusted with himself. "I'm sorry for kissing you." He apologized. "You don't have to apologize because I kissed you back." Mary replied boldly, "You're inexperienced and I should have known better than to take advantage. You came here to seek new opportunities, and it was insensitive of me to take advantage of your situation." He added. The passionate kiss they shared lingered in the air, but no longer on their minds. The worsening situation made Mary feel it. She understood his good intentions, but the truth behind it hurt her. He wasn't interested. Otherwise, kissing her wouldn't be a problem. "I understand." She chuckled to hide the hurt. "It's just a few kisses. You're not interested in someone like me. I won't hold it against you." "I didn't say that," he quickly rebutted, frustrated. Mary threw up her arms before snapping. Well, what do you mean then?" "You deserve more. Mary, you deserve to be treated with respect. I told you before and I would tell you again. I desire you, which means I am interested in you," Ryker responded, and she still didn't know the direction of the conversation. Obviously, Ryker knew that he has already pulled himself into deep to dig himself back out. Truth was, he liked her too much, and that truth irked him, no doubt about it. Yet to think of another male courting her, or to even show an ounce of disrespect towards her, didn't sit well with him. As crass and as much as an asshole as he was, he felt it was important she felt respect. So, where does that leave him exactly? I think we both feel the same way for each other physically. But while I would love to push you up against the post right now and have my way with you, I also want to know more about you. He'll offer courtship but still guard his heart. Mary knew where he was going now. He was asking to court her to get to know her more. She couldn't believe her ears. Did he truly mean it? He was interested in someone like her. Last night he told her he desired her. Today, he admitted to being interested in her. Now he was asking to court her. They were different people. He was a beautiful male with features that any female would swoon over, but she was plain. "Really?" she barely whispered. "You don't believe me?" He whispered back. One of his hands reached out to grab onto one of her wrists, pulling her stunned body closer to him. Once she was close enough, he slid his hand up her arm to rest firmly on the part where her shoulder and neck connected. Cardamom and clove sweetly wrapped around her. Ryker's beautiful hazel eyes were clear as ever. She could see the small specks of copper, gray, and evergreen. Mary's eyes slid down to his lips and then to the stubble beard around his jaw. Such roguish features. An opportunity. It was what she wanted in the first place. To feel and experience. To love and begin. Ryker leaned down, pulling her close to him with his lips just above hers. Well, his lips skimmed her lips, and they tingled to life. Okay, she said with a shrug. One corner of his lips lifted amusingly before he captured her bottom lip between his. Mary sighed and leaned her weak body against him. When he pulled back from the kiss, she was still leaning against him. I wanted to show you something else. He changed subject. It took a bit for her to catch up. Her knees were a little weak from his kisses and aromatic scent. When she registered every word, her eyes wide and slightly in question. I offered an opportunity to learn and employment. Would you like to visit one of our famous restaurants up in these mountains? He asked. Mary didn't know if she could handle any more surprises. Within one day, she found herself being courted by a very handsome alpha male, and now he was going to take her to a restaurant. If this was a dream, she never wanted to wake up. 20. The casual dining restaurant sat in the middle of the town. It had a low-key atmosphere and particular choices in decor. There were about a dozen of round tables and a few booths against the warm mocha-colored walls. As soon as the waiter seen Ryker and Mary walked through the door, he worked quickly in getting them seated. Ryker and Mary sat in a booth by an open window. On the other side of the open window was the perfect view of their dense woods and the mountainous blue skies. Would you like to have your regular order, Alpha? The waiter asked. Ryker orders only one dish from this restaurant. Nothing else. Everyone knows that the Alpha was a picky eater. He was a meat kind of guy. The owner of the restaurant cooks Alpha Ryker's dish. It was an inconvenience because Ryker was paying him to work here in the mountains. The dish was pan, seared beef tenderloin with a roasted garlic, chili infusion with a sweet, tangy mango salsa to abate the heat of the chilies. They also served it with a simple side salad or steamed vegetables. And wine. The dish sounded delicious to Mary, and because Ryker ordered it, she wanted to know what were his preferences. About 30 minutes later, and the dishes arrived. When Mary caught a whiff of the aromatic garlic and rosemary scent, her stomach grumbled loudly. Sorry, I didn't eat breakfast this morning. She apologized. Why didn't you? He picked up his steak knife and fork. I was making breakfast for Louise and Doris. I got occupied, she said shyly, with the time they spent in the greenhouse, picking some vegetables for her to bring home, and traveling here. It was past noon already. Barry cut into the medium, rare steak. They cooked the steak medium, rare with pink to the flesh. She mixed it with the salsa and brought the fork to her mouth. The chef's skills impressed Mary. He seasoned the meat properly, and she could still taste the infused garlic and chilies. But the mango salsa cooled the heat. I can see why you like eating this dish, she said with a smile. Do you like it? Ryker asked. The chef here knew what he is doing. I love the different textures and flavors that he put together. She took another large bite. I was traveling in the Pacific part of the States when I came across him at a restaurant. Ryker shrugged while chewing his food. Made an offer he called and turned down. Do you do a lot of traveling? She asked curiously. I don't like to travel very much. However, with alpha duties and pack responsibility, there are many pack members that rely on me. It's important that I oversee some matters personally. So, to answer your question, I travel more than anyone within the pack. Does Abraham go with you when you travel? Picking up her of lemon water, she took a sip. Ryker stuck his fork into a steamed broccoli. No, I like to have him here to watch the pack. So you travel alone? Most of the time. He replied with a shrug. That must be lonely. She cowled and imagined traveling alone. The idea was a little frightening and lonely. Imagine the many nights he slept alone in a hotel room or appeared in a room filled with strangers. She felt his burden. Am used to it. Mary ate the last of her steak, scooping up all the salsa on the last slice of steak before popping in her mouth. The waiter refilled their cups of water before leaving them alone again. Even if you're used to it, it must still be lonely, she insisted. How about I go with you? Keep you company. Ryker sat down his fork and steak and studied her. Did she offer to join him on his trips? You can't go, he said. It isn't safe. Your last trip was safe, she rebutted. My last trip was an easy one. Then take me on the easy ones, she pushed. Ryker wanted to laugh. Seriously, she was persistent. Did she really want to go with him? He had to admit the idea seemed appealing to him. He liked her company more than he would like to admit to. You'll think about it. He ended their conversation. So has it always been just you and Abraham? She asked. Ryker leaned back in his chair and crossed his arms. She asked questions no one would dare to ask. It was the only reason he answered her. If you read up on my bio, you'll see that at age 20, I started my investments. When I turned 25, I gained an alpha title by wealth and merit. He merely stated facts from what was already on public record, but they both knew what Mary was asking. Mary wanted to know about his past before he became who he was. What about you? He asked. Mary shrugged. Leaning forward, she placed her elbows on the table and propped her chin on top of her hands. My life is as boring as me. You are not boring, he interrupted. A simple smile appeared, and just like that her face lit up underneath the dimmed lights. Ryker could see the sprinkle of freckles on her cheeks and over the bridge of her nose. Then there were those golden, brown eyes that paired so well with the mousy brown hair. It glistened like gold threads underneath the soft light. I've no accomplishment like you. You've done so much. My minor accomplishments are nothing compared to what you have done, she said honestly. Good afternoon, Alpha. Someone interrupted them. Ryker and Mary turned to see that it was the chef. He stood tall and slim. One thing Mary noted about him was how fair and handsome he also looked. His shoulders were wide and pulled back. An air of arrogance fluttered around him like he knew he looked as good as she saw he was. The chef's jacket he had on was a strong contrast to his rich sword skin. He had an afro-side fade haircut. Good afternoon, Easton, Ryker greeted before introducing Mary to him. Mary also loves to cook. I brought her here to work with you. Easton's dark brown eyes landed on Mary again. I don't work well with others, Easton said. Well, you're going to have to. Mary interrupted them. Easton turned to face her, his eyes narrowing into slits. And Mary felt herself go back to culinary school, when males wanted to prove that they were smarter than females in every way, belittling her for her culinary knowledge. Elle was looking at her the same way her classmates were. I don't have to do anything that I don't want to, Easton returned coolly. Well, Elle, if that was the case, Mary decided it was better not to be around him. If he doesn't want to work together, then she would not force him. Easton, Ryker's voice held a thread of anger to it. Alpha, you know me well enough to know that I don't work well with others. And by a dissection, by Ryker. I'm well aware of that. But eventually you must learn. You can run this restaurant all by yourself. Ryker growled. What makes you think she can handle this restaurant with me? I've been handling it well on my own. Ryker was about to speak up, but Mary startled them both by shooting out of her seat. An indignation look in her eyes. You're right. You don't know me. As a chef, you know that the best way to know the full potential of the people you hire is through their cooking. Give me 1 hour and I'll give you all that I am in one plate. All in one plate. Easton said the word slowly. He didn't look like he believed one bit. How would she be able to manage something like that? Soon, Mary was in Easton's kitchen. She picked through his fresh ingredients, found some fresh honeycomb. She squeezed a little of the honey onto her finger and tasted the flavor. It was strong and sweet in flavor. Moving on, she found some dried hibiscus flower petals, heavy cream, eggs, vanilla beans, and milk. She made quick work in whisking and heating the ingredients, soaking and heating the dried hibiscus flower petals with the cream, vanilla bean, milk, and honey. Once done, drizzled the hot cream mixture over the whisked egg yolk before returning the mixture back and whisking the mixture. After, She poured the custard over a fine mesh strainer and into a metal container to catch the flower petals and bits of eggs. Finally, she poured filtered custard into an ice cream churner. While waiting, she caramelized some sugar and played with a cute design. The hard contrast of the caramelized candy sugar will contrast the texture of the silky ice cream. Plating was also important. After 20 minutes, Mary could plate her ice cream, scooping it into a spoon. She smoothed all the rough edges on the ice cream with quick hand movements into spoons before placing it onto a white cold plate. Then she drizzled a little of the honey on top and added the piece of caramelized sugar on top. The kitchen door opened. Ryker and Easton walked into the kitchen, both of them looking at the simple yet elegant dish. Mary offered them spoons to taste the dessert. Easton was the first to dig in. He caught the edge of the egg-shaped ice cream, cracked the caramelized sugar, and scooped a little onto his spoon, taking his first bite. Mary watched him eat her ice cream slowly. Time ticked by slowly. Mary swore she could hear the hand on the clock move. She chose ice cream for one reason. When people first look at ice cream, their first thought was cold, but once people get to tasting the ice cream, it was just cold. It held more than its coldness. The honey makes it warm and sweet. The hibiscus flower petal signified female, beauty, and perfection. Mary used this flower for one reason. She wanted to show him that females were not inferior. They were equal to males. Easton's eyes found Mary, a small curve to his lips. Ryker tried the dessert, his eyebrows shooting up a little at the taste. He wasn't a big fan of dessert, but he didn't mind this one. It wasn't too sweet. It was creamy and perfect. Well, Mary couldn't wait for his answer. She hoped Easton felt what she was trying to convey. I start work every day at 10 a.m. I expect to see you here at 9 tomorrow morning. Mary's smile was the biggest Ryker has ever seen. It cracked the walls to his heart like a shooting arrow. Her eyes held so much happiness when he looked at her. He couldn't speak but admire her silently. A soft, joyous laugh escaped her. "Oh, thank you," she exclaimed. Mary couldn't believe it. She did it. She earned herself a spot within the pack and it came from her. Even if Easton was an asshole, it would not deter her from working hard because cooking meant so much to her. She couldn't wait to see what else was in store for her. Sleeping tonight would be hard since she couldn't wait to start tomorrow. 21. Crouching low in the bushes, Ryker Wolf's eyes waited for the deer mountain to bend down for a sip of the spring water. Its ears cupped forward, head held high, and head turned toward Ryker, its body tense and conscious of its surrounding. Without a doubt, the deer sensed something wrong, but it couldn't see Ryker. Ryker's fur blended with the obsidian night. His wolf's eyes maintained its natural hazel color. Suddenly, the deer relaxed. Its neck relaxed and head lowered. It began rinking the water. Ryker launched at him, his paws digging into the dirt, growling as he latched onto the deer's neck. A loud shriek came from the deer. It tried escaping the unexpected attack, kicking its legs. But it was useless. Ryker was superior in every way. Slowly, a few more wolves appeared out of the shadow, walking over to join Ryker at his meal. Hunting in their wolf forms, they like to eat now and then. Whatever they kill, they usually bring back to share with everyone else. A flash of similar black fur appeared in Ryker's vision. It was his brother. Abraham walked next to him, bent his head down, and began tearing the meat from the body. A few enforcers that tagged along joined in. After they finished devouring the deer, they shifted back to their human form to clean up the blood that now stained their bodies. They washed their bodies in the cold spring water. Once done, Ryker pulled on a pair of black cotton shorts he carried with him before stepping out of the shadows. Abraham was joking around with the enforcers. They stood around in a circle beneath the moon. "You must be hungry tonight," Abraham joked. "I'm hungry for many things." Ava's eyes moved from Abraham to Ryker in female appreciation. "Hey Ava, how about you and I?" Ethan teased. But Ava shut him up with a quick rejection. "Not interested." "Yo, Alpha, you going to tell us more about that female you had been hanging around with?" Who is she? Dalton asked when he saw Ryker. Ryker didn't respond. He walked back to his backpack, bent down, and picked up his sleeveless denim top. He quickly put his arms through the large sleeve holes and pulled the shirt over his head. Just sitting. Gary answered for Ryker. So, are you saying there is nothing going on between our alpha and her? Dalton questioned. She can't be a potential mate for our alpha. She doesn't look like she would fit in with us. Ava snagged the opportunity to speak up. Who is she to you? Bruno, who was hiding in the shadows, asked Ryker directly. Bruno was an old pack member, a little witch, a little older than Ryker by a few years. Ryker knew him to be arrogant and brash. Sometimes, Bruno would step out of line and push Ryker's decisions a little, but Ryker knew he could trust the guy. Bruno saved Ryker's life more than a handful of times. She's important to me, Ryker answered him. You're courting her. It was a statement, but it came out as an accusation. Ryker and everyone else was used to Bruno's bluntness. Does it matter? If I say she's important, then you treat with the same respect you'll give me, Ryker growled. Ava didn't look too happy to hear Ryker's response, even if Ryker didn't say it. His enforcers knew the answer. Mary was off limits because he was courting her. Their alpha has treated none, other females, this way before, like an overprotective male. I'm heading back first. Derry? Take the rest of the kills to Theo. Have him butcher the meat before handing it out to everyone, Ryker ordered. Bending to swipe his backpack with one hand, Ryker turned his back on his enforcers and walked the rest of the way home. Tonight, they traveled a little farther than usual. Ryker needed to work off some tension. Mary has started her new job at the restaurant 2 days ago. Now they barely see each other. They both leave their home at different times. They both return at different times. It shouldn't bother him so much, but he was bothered by it. Yet he wasn't willing to approach her. Not yet. He didn't want her to feel like he was hovering. Ryker wanted to give her a chance to become independent and become comfortable with the pack. His fingers tightened around the backpack, his eyes staring ahead as he trudged through the woods. Ryker, Abraham said from behind him before running to catch up. When he reached Ryker's side, Abraham slowed his pace. So everyone has been talking. They're wondering about your relationship with Mary. What are we supposed to say? Abraham questioned. Tell them to fuck off. Ryker growled irritably. Abraham chuckled. You know, it isn't just to satisfy their own curiosity. Maybe by stating your claim, unmated males would not think she is available. Know what I mean? Ryker remained silent. A part of him wanted to announce it. It would avoid any conflicts. However, he knew if announced it would drive away from the only wall that he has up. The wall he built up since Lottie. Remember when I told you about Lottie? Ryker asked. You told me you thought she was the one. Ryker nodded his head. The calmness of the night helped ease his agitated heart and mind. Sighing, he ran his fingers through his hair and looked up at the sky. Abraham knew where Ryker's thoughts were when he opened his heart to Lottie and announced that he had chosen Lottie as his mate. He made it official. In the end, he got his heart broken. Ryker was afraid that he was going to walk a similar path. It's not the same, Abraham said. Lottie was a scheming whore. She lured you and manipulated you. Ryker tried so hard to not feel so much, but now trying was useless. He was falling even when he was trying so hard not to. Could he love but not give all of him away? Pursuing her was an act of honor but also a reason for him to hope. When they reached the pathway that led down to Ryker's home, they split ways. Telling Ryker what to do was the simple part. But the last leap, it has to come from Ryker. He needed to learn to let go. Ryker walked along the quiet pathway, his eyes not looking exactly anywhere. When he passed Mary's cabin to walk to his home, he heard keys jangling and quiet voices. You need to add shallots. Mary laughed. I didn't have any, so I used red onions. And laughed along with Mary. Ryker had never heard Deaston laugh before. Oh God, red onions. Ryker stopped walking to stare. She stood in front of her door. Easton must have walked her home. His chef's jacket was around her shoulder to ward off the chill of the night. Her eyes round with disbelief and amusement. It didn't taste so bad, he replied. Besides, I was still in culinary school. I had to use what I had on hand. Mary's laughter filled the night air. Ryker's heart squeezed hard in his chest. He missed hearing it. Did your instructor notice? Yes, he did. That old man was on top of his taste buds. He gave me a passing grade for my dish, but damn. Did I get an earful on how much red onions I used? Easton replied. Laughter was evident in his voice. He was smiling from ear to ear. Ryker could see the whites of his straight teeth. Well, Mary's face had a smile on it. Thank you for walking me home. No problem. It was late. Are you telling me that there are things in these mountains I should worry about? Mary teased. Easton chuckled nervously. He stuffed his hands into his pocket before shrugging. You never know. An unmated female seems like a tempting meal to me. Easton flirted. Mary must have realized that Easton was flirting with her because her smile slipped a little before she caught herself. Suddenly shy, she smoothed back some loose strands of hair behind her ear. Angry, Ryker continued down the path, but walked a little louder and made a little more noise to announce his presence. Whatever he did, he caught both their attention. Easton and Mary turned to look at him. Good evening, Alpha. Ungreeted. Ryker stopped to stare at Mary. Mary could sense that Ryker was angry, or irritated. His eyes were hard and not soft like what she was used to. An awkward silence lingered in the air because Ryker would not move from his spot until Easton leaves, and Easton was waiting for Ryker to leave so he could continue to flirt with Mary. Mary looked at Easton. Thanks again for walking me home. I'll see you tomorrow. Mary dismissed Easton, but Tom looked at Mary for a hesitated second before nodding his head. See you tomorrow. He turned to Ryker. Good night, Alpha. When Easton left, Ryker started walking towards him home. However, Mary stopped Ryker in his footsteps. Wait, she called out. Ryker turned to look at her. She didn't move. Instead, she spoke from where she was standing. Ryker noticed that Easton's jacket was still around Mary's shoulder. He walked over to her before slipping the jacket of her shoulders. Oh, I forgot to give him this, she said. I'll give it to him. Ryker wanted to rip the jacket into a million pieces. But I'll see him tomorrow morning. He asked me to come in early tomorrow. Easton is teaching me how to make one of his favorite home dishes before the restaurant open. Ryker fisted Easton's jacket in his hands. Mary's raised hand stopped halfway in reaching for the jacket. Ryker was wrinkling the material. Okay, Ryker nearly growled his response. It came out hoarse. Mary touched Easton's jacket and Ryker. Finally, let go. So, how are you? She inquired, bringing Easton's jacket to her chest. She wrapped her arms around it. I've been busy, Ryker replied. I realize that. I haven't seen you in days. I was thinking you went somewhere far. We went on a hunting trip, Ryker replied. Hunting? What did you guys kill? She questioned curiously. A few big games and a few small ones, he answered, dropping his hand almost unwillingly back to his side. Mary nodded, and again they fell silent for a minute, just living in each other's presence for a few minutes. Would you like to come inside for a drink? Mary invited him. It was late, but Ryker cowled in help but noticed that Mary didn't invite Easton. She had invited Ryker inside, gloating a little. Hell. Yes, he was. He nodded his head. They walked inside the cabin together. Ryker watched her walk at her little kitchen. She opened her cabinet and pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of old scotch. His eyes wandered around the small cabin and saw there were little hints of her all over the home. Mary's house was filled with wildflowers that she must have picked. There were throw blankets and little pillows on the couch. Mary walked over and handed him a glass. He took it from her. She sipped hers and sighed, moving her head back and forth and rubbing the ache from her shoulders. She walked over to the sofa to sit. It was a long day today. She groaned. A lot of cuss, he asked. Mary nodded. I don't know how Easton does it. He works hard every day and all by himself. I'm amazed. Ryker didn't want to talk about Easton. He sat his glass down on an end table before walking behind the sofa. Placing his hands on shoulders, he rubbed away the ache. Her stiff shoulders relaxed immediately under his large hands. Lord, that feels good, she moaned. Ryker hardened and his body physically reacted as a thunderbolt hit him. Suddenly, he craved kissing her. It was an urge that intensified. God, all those days didn't stop what he was feeling. It only made it worse. 22. Once again, Ryker studied her every feature. What was it about her that pulled him towards her? Why was it that every time he looked at her, she only grew more attractive? Mary blinked and waited obediently. In that split second, she felt more than just safe. She felt contentment from deep inside her soul and knew without a doubt that her wolf may have taken a liking to this potential mate standing in front of them. Ryker's thumb touched her bottom lip. It parted and trembled underneath his silent observation. His thick eyebrows furrowed with bewilderment, but his eyes burning with desires, to contrasting emotions written on his face. Sudden, harsh rapping at the front door broke their trance. Ryker looked away from Mary towards the door. Howls, loud, mournful howls echoed throughout the desolated woods of the mountain. Something was wrong. Ryker moved to the door, unlocking it, and whipping it open. His eyes were hard and masked. Mary followed Ryker, but when Ryker saw that she was moving a little too close to the opening of the door, he grabbed her wrist and pulled her behind him. His firm hand dropped on her wrist to prevent her from going further. What happened? Ryker questioned. It's Ava. She ran away from the hunting pack. Said she needed some cool air. I sent Ethan and Gary after her scent. When they found her, someone torn her throat. She's dead. Ryker. Abraham's face looked ashen white. Did you catch the scent of another? Ryker questioned. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. They masked their scent. Abraham replied, shaking his head almost in disbelief. In the last couple of months, Ryker has been dealing with dead bodies and accidents. These accidents look unintentional, but Ryker knew otherwise. They were little clues that they found after each accident that led Ryker to believe that every accident was deliberate. Ryker needed to investigate the crime scene. Releasing Mary's wrist, he was already stepping out of her cabin. He needed to shift to his wolf. His sense of smell and supernatural traits were stronger in his ultimate form. In a blink of an eye, Mary witnessed a strong and passionate male morph into his wolf, standing before her regally strong and concentrated. His clothes shredded into pieces on the ground. She thought he would run into the woods and disappear into the darkness, but instead he turned his head to look at her. Those hazel eyes gazing at her, waiting. Then he turned around and pushed his head against her waist. Mary released a surprised gasp before she realized he wanted her to go back inside. All right. She answered hastily before walking inside her cabin. Once she was safely inside, Ryker jumped on his paws and ran after his brother, who was a few feet ahead of him. He followed Abraham to the scene. When he got there, only a few trusted enforcers stood around in their human skin. A few trackers were examining the crime scene in their wolf forms. Ryker noticed that the ground Ava's dead body laid on was in disarray. Broken logs and rue and brushes and grass. She put up a fight, but judging by the damage done, it looked like it involved a few people. Walking over to Ava's body, he sniffed her fur and then around her. Ethan came running out into Ryker. We looked everywhere. There are no signs of invasion. Gary checked all borders of the territories and patrols tonight saw no one or anything different. Ethan rushed to say, out of breath and a little freaked out. Something glistened underneath the moonlight. Ryker turned his head to the left and noticed Ava's necklace lying on the ground. He knew right away that it was hers because she was wearing this earlier this evening. On the necklace were fresh bloodstains that were more than likely hers. Ryker knew that Ava's death would question his position as alpha for a few of his pack members. They might not have said it out loud, but he knew that they were talking about it. However, Among those few pack members, there were a few that believed in him. He was new to his position and has no significant lineage that would support his position, so hold a seed of doubt was understandable. Ryker was quiet as he observed the crime scene. His thoughts were everywhere, calculating and running through every possibility that he could come up with. Their territory was in an elevated area. Border patrols guarded all entrances, but nothing impenetrable, so he cowled and just dropped that possibility. Could it be someone internally? Ryker continued to mull over these options throughout the night. When he finally collapsed into bed, exhaustion ached his muscles and mind. His temples were pounding toward keeping his eyes open hurt. Ryker took a quick shower, dried himself off quick, but didn't bother putting on any clothing. Collapsing into bed, without clothes and weary, he placed one arm over his head and exhaled. Stress and desolation accompanied him tonight. He closed his eyes, but images of Ava's dead body lingered in his mind. It acted like a demon that tortured him in the night. It was unsolved, no traces or scent. The destruction of the crime scene only made it harder to locate where the perpetrator disappeared to. Now, even though weariness settled into his very bones, he couldn't stop his mind from running. The wheels were turning, pulling the thin black silk cover over his lower body. He rolled over to his side into the dark corner. After a few minutes, he heard movement outside. The sound of leaves crunching and branches snapping underneath footsteps. Whoever it was very sharp on keeping quiet or was a complete novice in committing crimes. The hair on his arms rose. His wolf was on full alert. Unmoved by his without-clothes-ness, he stood up from his bed, walked out into the hallway slowly, his ears raised and listening. Once he reached the stair, he walked down the one-flight stairs to his main-level floor. His kitchen to the left and behind the stairs and a large sitting area to his right. Right next to the living room was the dining area that had a long rectangular table and several chairs. Honestly, Ryker bought it because it looked nice, but he never once sat down on the table to eat. A flicker of a shadow on his front left window caught his attention, his eyes lifting to see it fly across and to the front door. Ryker exited the back door of his home gradually, walking out of his home. Ryker hoped to catch the culprit before he could manage to break into his home. He followed the noisy footsteps. When he near enough, he could see the shoulder hiding behind a post, but it was literally pitch dark outside that even with his human eyes it was a little hard to see who it was. Instantly, he grabbed onto the culprit, wrapped one arm around his neck in a chokehold. "Who are you?" Ryker questioned deathly low just as the culprit released a high-pitched scream. He realized immediately that the person he was holding was not a man. More importantly, she was not a culprit. "Fuck, Mary. I almost killed you." Ryker swore angrily and loosening his grip. "Do you always sneak up on people and put them in chokeholds?" She accused him. As soon as he released her, she spun around to give him an indigent glare. "To be fair, you were creeping around my house," Ryker pointed out with a shrug. That was when Mary's eyes swept away from Ryker's dreamy eyes and traveled gradually down his without-clothes body. For the second time since her arrival, she was, again staring at his beautiful body. Ryker took a step toward her. She stumbled back so quickly she hit his door. Averting her eyes to look, she grabbed at his door like her life depended on it. I was just checking in on you," she stammered, while he took another step toward her. She moved closer to the wall that now every single part of her right side touched the door. He was so close to her. She felt the heat of his body radiating all over her right side body. "You left in a hurry." Abraham looked worried. "I just wanted to make sure everything was okay," she replied. Ryker said nothing. After a few minutes, Mary's eyes returned to Ryker's face. He was looking at her oddly. "Coming out in the middle of the night like this isn't good for you." Ryker whispered why. She looked at him innocently. With her current position, she stood just below a ray of moonlight that he could see part of her face. He lifted his hand to cup one side of her face. Ryker's mind was indeed troubled, so messed up with so many issues that he couldn't sleep even in exhausted state. Adding Mary into the mixed end if he had to give in to one issue. She was the one that he would give in. Taking the one last step to eliminate the space between them, he cupped both her cheeks, his eyes studying her face for any hint of fear or disgust. Easton was right. You know, danger lurks in the dark, many of which would love to destroy the very innocent soul that you are. He rasped huskily. Mary sharply inhaled, her breasts accidentally rubbing against him. Are you one of them? Mary whispered. She could barely get the words out. Her heart was beating so fast. She feared he could hear it. She fisted her hands at her side and unconsciously wetted her lips. Do you want me to be? He asked while his eyes dropped to her wet lips. This was it. Mary could feel it. She didn't mean to come out to this. She had only wanted to check in on him. It took her a while to find his home, but after a few lost turns she managed to find it. Ryker's home wasn't huge like Alpha Ivan's. No, he built it a lot smaller, but enough to fit a family in it. A few pups and a wife. What was she thinking? Why was she thinking about this? The thought of Ryker with another female and having pups with her, it didn't sit well with Mary. Her chest tightened at the thought. Mary, Ryker reminded her. What was the use of running? You only live once. Mary's motto she was living by. Yes, she answered him. Ryker didn't waste another second. He needed a reprieve from the painful tension in his head. He needed an escape from his obligation and needed comfort. Mary was here, and he never craved her more. Kissing her only confirmed how much he needed this. He slammed her up against his front door, heard her grunt a little at the impact, slid his tongue across the seam of her lips before lifting up her legs to wrap around his waist. He slanted his lips over hers as soon as she granted him entrance. Mary wrapped her arms around his neck. The kiss right now was rough and full with need. She felt his frustration, his anger, and desperation. Somehow, Mary knew. She knew that Ryker needed this undoubtedly. She was more than willing to give it to him. She let go of her resistance, closed her mind to society rules and allowed herself to fall into whatever was happening between Ryker and her. Mary felt the door open behind her and a second later she was inside his home. The kissing never stopped. Even when Ryker moved his lips from hers down to her throat and began sucking, it was sensitive, and it drove her crazy. She cowled and stood still in his arms even when he was trying to carry her upstairs. Finally, he had to stop halfway to tell her to stop wriggling. Mary, are you sure you want to go through with this? He asked one more time. He kept asking her, and although Mary was still firm on her answer, she realized that he thinks she was still a virgin. Ryker, am not a virgin, she replied. Her response made him smirk. That doesn't mean you don't deserve to be asked. Mary's heart melted. It was her turn to cup his cheeks. I want this. Ryker, 23. It has been a while since Mary has been with a male. Several years. Actually, most of them were just looking to have some fun. And Mary was no longer in that place. But being pinned between Ryker and his large mattress, Mary felt a jolt of delight that she hasn't felt in years. Ryker lowered his head and kissed her. A gentle caress that made her heart ache and her body yearn for more before he turned hard and demanding. It made her feel like a porcelain, all that he didn't want to break, but desired her all at the same time. His tongue sank into her mouth, stroking and caressing her responses. His gentleness but man-lines made her feel magical things. His thoughts came to a screeching halt when he felt her lips brushed against his neck. It slipped like little butterfly wings, grazing and sending his nerves on fire. Sweet gods and goddesses above, Ryker prayed. He needed more of her. Mary. When she didn't answer, he pulled up to look at her. She was fast asleep with a small smile on her face. Ryker cowled and helped but chuckle a little. She looked thoroughly satisfied. He pushed off her, knowing full well that his weight would suffocate her. Walking to the bathroom, he grabbed a clean, wet cloth to clean her up. She didn't bother waking up while he wiped her down. When he finished, he pulled back to look at her. She turned and curled up into a fetal position. He could still see the part of her breasts and all of her without clothes-ness. Ryker pulled his silk covers to cover her body. Then he walked to the bathroom to clean up. He took a quick shower again before crawling into bed next to her. When she moved, He thought he had woke her, but that wasn't the case. She shifted her position so that she was snuggled up to his side and his arm was around her. It felt right, Mary being in his arms. He settled back onto his pillow and closed his eyes. Oddly enough, he fell asleep soon after. Not once did he wake up. When he woke up, though, he found that he was alone in bed. The streaming daylight from his bedroom window told him it was morning. He got up to sit on the edge of the bed but halted his actions when he heard the shower turned off. A few minutes later, Mary stepped out of the shower with a towel wrapped around her torso. "Hope you are okay that I am using one of their towels. I woke up late and I have work in an hour." Last night he could only catch a glimpse of her body in the dark. Now he could see it clearly. Mary bent down to pick up her shirt and pants. Although she took a shower, Ryker can still smell bits of his scents on her. It made him rock hard again. When Mary stood up, her eyes immediately found the hard length between his legs. "I have work," she stated weakly. He stood up and sauntered toward her like a predator. "In an hour," Ryker replied. He turned her around, pushed her torso down so that her hands were propped on the bed, and pulled the towel away from her body. It fell to the floor. Ryker wasted no time. He plunged his length inside her once again from behind. She cried out in pleasure. His hands moved to her waist as he continued a fast but hard pace. When they were done, Mary was sweaty and her skin stained with his scent. She had no time in showering again, so she cleaned up quick and ran out of his home. She had to rush home to change before running to work. She made it a good 30 minutes late, and the place was already busy with their customers. Pushing all thoughts of last night and Ryker away, Mary focused her attention on her work.